When did your parents' crazy rule almost kill you? My parents completely banned the internet from our house. They thought it was evil and would ruin my brain. At 16, I was the only kid in school without any internet access at home. No Wi-Fi, no phone data, nothing. Every day after school, I had to stay late to use the computer lab just to turn in homework. My teacher would announce online assignments to the class, then look at me and say I needed paper copies. Everyone would turn and stare. It was humiliating. Group projects were the worst because my partners would work together online all night while I sat at home unable to help or even see what they were doing. When I begged my parents for internet just for homework, Mom would go on about how kids get addicted to screens. Dad kept a folder of articles about internet dangers on his desk and would tap it whenever I complained. "We're protecting you," he'd say with his smug smile. They even did daily backpack checks to make sure I didn't have any devices. At lunch, I'd sit quietly while everyone talked about stuff they saw online. I couldn't join any conversations. My friends started thinking I was weird and stopped inviting me places since they couldn't text me. Our neighbor, Mrs. Estride, noticed me doing homework on the porch with textbooks while other kids were inside on computers. One day, she walked over and handed me a piece of paper with her Wi-Fi password written on it. "Every kid needs internet for school," she said quietly, watching my front door. Then she pulled out an old tablet from her bag and gave it to me. That night, I hid in my room with the tablet behind my bookshelf. The Wi-Fi signal was weak and barely reached my room, but it worked. I only used it late at night when my parents were asleep, terrified they'd catch me. One night in September, I woke up at 2 a.m. smelling smoke. When I looked out my window, the hills behind our neighborhood were glowing orange. There was a wildfire, and the wind was blowing it straight toward our houses. I ran to my parents' room and shook my dad awake. "There's a fire coming," I said, scared out of my mind. He barely opened his eyes. "Go back to sleep. If there was real danger, they'd sound the sirens." Then he rolled over and went back to sleep. Mom didn't even wake up. I ran back to my room, and the orange glow was definitely bigger and closer. That's when I remembered something terrifying. Our town had switched to digital emergency alerts last year. No more sirens. All evacuation warnings went through phones and the internet. My parents had called it government tracking and refused to sign up. They would never know we needed to evacuate. My hands were shaking as I grabbed the hidden tablet from behind my bookshelf. I waited for it to connect to Mrs. Stride's weak Wi-Fi, watching the fire get closer through my window. When it finally loaded, the screen showed a huge red alert: mandatory evacuation immediate. The alert had been sent 45 minutes ago. Everyone else had been evacuating for 45 minutes while we slept. I ran back to my parents' room with the tablet, screaming that we had to leave right now. Mom saw the tablet in my hands and started to yell at me for having it, but Dad grabbed it and read the evacuation order. His face went white when he saw the timestamp, 45 minutes late. We threw whatever we could grab into the car. As we drove away, I looked back and saw actual flames coming over the hill toward our street. Other families were already gone. We were the last ones leaving. The fire was right behind us. If I hadn't had that hidden tablet, we would have woken up to our house on fire. Our house burned down completely, along with 6 others on our street. Mom found my melted tablet in our salvage stuff and just held it for a long time. "Thank God for Mrs. Estride," she whispered. That weekend, they bought me a phone with unlimited data. They never said another word about the internet being dangerous.